All right. I want to welcome everyone to the Power of Our Story. I'm so excited to have our guest, Jennifer Byrne. She's the co-founder and vice president of Shields and Stripes. We had Stephen Nisbet on a little while ago and just loved what he had to share. And just really excited to have Jennifer on also. She is the, like I said, the co-founder and vice president of Shields and Stripes. She's the owner of 5x5 Performance Therapy. She is a Boston University academic mentor. She's passionate, a passion occupational therapist. She's a yoga instructor, certified mental health and integrative, medicine provider. She's an Air Force veteran, a special operations military spouse, mom, daughter, little sister of a Blackhawk pilot, and big sister of an awesome human with disabilities. Her mission in life is simple: to save lives and foster happiness, focusing on providing the care that veterans, law enforcement, first responders, and their families deserve and need. And let me get my screen back on here. So Jennifer, I just want to welcome you. I wanted to share all that to show how holistic you are in your approach and how well educated you are in that approach also. It's amazing. And so I just want to welcome you. We are looking forward to hearing your story and then having a question and answer afterward. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. I wrote that so long ago. It was kind of nice to hear you say it. I was like, oh, wow, that sounds pretty darn good there. But hi, everyone. This is so exciting. I love this format. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I loved that I was kind of able to get to know each one of you just a little bit and know your backgrounds. So again, I feel privileged to be here and to be sharing my story. I guess I can kind of start from the beginning, and I'll just kind of take you along this journey of mine. I knew that I was always a protector from a very young age. My younger brother is less than 2 years younger than me. His name is Ricky, and he was diagnosed with microcephaly. So for those of you that remember Zika virus, the pregnant women in the microcephaly manifests as a significant disability. So Ricky is 30 right now, and we still have to feed him, and he walks, he's ambulatory, but all of his activities of daily living we have to assist with. But I was his protector. I was his big sister, and found myself in quite a few sticky situations growing up, taking that role on. I also have an older brother who is now an Army Blackhawk pilot who's 4 years older than me. But it was always a little bit more acceptable for the girl to get in fights. I got in a little bit less trouble than my older brother would get in when I would be on the playground getting into some fights for people saying the R word or making fun of other people. It was just something that I didn't tolerate. Now I'm able to advocate for them much better than on the playground with my fists. But that is to say that I knew from a very, very young age that it was my job in life to protect those who needed it and to make sure that everyone deserved a quality of life and a good quality of life. So I went through on high school. I still was quite a bit of a troublemaker, to be honest. I was doing what I wanted. I found myself in the principal's office a couple of times, specifically because a bully had picked on my little brother, and I got suspended there from high school for a little bit. But my dad was happy to tell me that he was not going to punish me for that one. But I was also getting into trouble in other ways. And I knew that I needed to find my way in life. And I knew that I was someone who really did well with structure. Now, what I have just recently accepted and come to terms with is, and it's a part of my story that I now can look back and understand very well why I may have been a little bit of a troublemaker, was that I was raped when I was 15 years old. I was raped by a boyfriend at the time, and that's just something that I thought happened to girls. And it was really hard to come to terms with, and I actually only came to terms with it recently. And it's because of a couple of the women who have come through Shields and Stripes. They encouraged me to stop hiding and to really be more authentic with my story and where I am today and how that story came to be. Pretty darn difficult to tell my older brother and my dad, who have always been my protectors, about what had happened so many years ago. My family is from New England, and my dad had a couple of words to say that I can't say here. So I had to convince them that it was okay, and that actually coming to terms with that and being open about it is actually going to help a lot more people, because these women were sitting here sharing their stories, and then I felt like a phony. I felt like I wasn't being as authentic as them. So I knew it was something that I needed to do. So through all of that, my dad, my parents are amazing. They've always been a big supporter of the military. My older brother was in the Army at the time, enlisted when he was 18. He was also a little bit of a troublemaker and really thrived in that structure. So I was in high school, senior year in high school, and I told my brother, hey, I'm going to enlist in the Army. That's what I'm going to do. And he said, oh, really? And I said, yep, that's what I'm going to do. So he took me out of school one day. He made me shadow him and a couple of the enlisted Army guys. He took me out to lunch and he said, you're not going to join the Army. You're going to go to college. You're going to get your degree. You're going to be an officer, and you're going to be an officer in the Air Force. And I was like, okay. So I was planning on going through ROTC, chickened out, didn't do it my first semester, got into trouble again, mostly with the party culture and drinking. And finally, my dad said, listen, kid, you're independent now, and you need to figure out a way to get your life together. I'm not going to be supporting you financially anymore. So you either get your life together or figure it out. So I walked into ROTC and I signed up, and that is what led me to commissioning in the Air Force. Now, as an occupational therapist, not many people know what occupational therapists are, and that's okay. But essentially what our role is really to make sure people live wonderful lives. And that's any kind of disability, whether it's mental, physical, you name it. So I went to school to become an occupational therapist, and was awarded a scholarship, did well enough and was awarded a scholarship to continue on my master's degree. So I got that. And then I entered active duty in 2014 in the Air Force. So that's kind of like leading up to my decision to be in the military in the first place. The influences of my brother, the influences of some of my experiences. And I think it was really in the military where I started to very much realize that my heroes weren't football players, and it wasn't, Miley Cyrus. There was a lot of things going on at that time, and specifically when I was going through college. And I recognized in my older brother, and I recognized in our military community, that the heroes are the ones that aren't seen and the ones that aren't on TV. And they're the ones that, aren't getting paid all of this money. And they're the ones that put their lives on the line. But there's something key to that as well. I also realized that our heroes are within the families. How incredible and how insane is it for a mother of 3 kids to say goodbye to her husband for a year and then continue all of the operations of the house while supporting that person or vice versa. And I think I recognized pretty early on that that same courage was within the families of the first responders and within police officers and firefighters, except they do it on an everyday basis. So that realization struck me while I was in active duty, and I was treating everyone with, PTSD, amputations started coming in more often, burns were starting to come in more often. And I also recognized during that time that the healthcare system was really missing out this very key piece of integrating the family into treatment. And it was never anything that I was really explicitly taught, but it was something that I saw was real magic when I was able to bring the families in and go through treatment protocols with them, whether it was PTSD, burns, PTSD, PTS, anxiety, depression, or whether it was just a shoulder injury. What I saw was way better results when the family was integrated into that treatment plan. So fast forward a little bit. At this point, I'm a young lieutenant. I'm a first lieutenant at the time. I think I was 23 years old. Started learning about the special operations community and realized that the trainees were on the other side of base. The special operation trainees were just across the base. And walked over one day and I laugh at this because lieutenants are a special breed. Walked into this facility where there were hardened combat warriors that were now instructors. And I was like, hey, my name is Lieutenant Aspinwall at the time. It's like, you guys look like you don't have any dedicated care. You don't have any dedicated medical support. And they're like, no, LT, we don't. I was like, well, I think I can help. And they kind of rolled their eyes and laughed. And I was like, no, I really do think I can help here. And they're like, well, have you skydived? And I was like, no. They're like, do you know how to swim and basically survive and drown in a pool? Like, no. They're like, all right, we'll see you on Saturday for your first jump. And we'll see you tomorrow at the pool at 5:15 in the morning. It's like, okay, what have I done here? But I showed up at the pool and I did drown for about, I survived, but I drowned for about 3 months until I learned how to swim. And then I was like, well, it's my job to really know the physical and mental demands of all of my clients. So if I'm going to take on these special operation trainees, I better get in the pool and I better learn what they're doing. So I learned a lot, very scary stuff. Proud to say that I can do an underwater of about 42 meters, or I could back then, but really started learning about the physical and mental challenge of the trainees. And I was like, I can't do this alone. And it doesn't make sense for an occupational therapist to do this alone. So I went to my commander at the time and I was like, hey, I need a physical therapist. We need more tech support. I need a sports medicine doctor. We need some athletic trainers and we need a nutritionist. And my commanders probably weren't used to a lieutenant telling them what they needed, but they also kind of laughed at me too. And they were like, okay, this is either going to go really, really bad or it's going to go great for us. So they let me develop the first sports medicine team for the special operations trainees there. And I look back at that and realize that the lessons I learned there were some of the best lessons that I learned in my military career, and it directly led me to where I am today with Shields and Stripes. Now that that assignment was all good and great, and that was my first assignment in Texas. And then I was put in Las Vegas, close to Michelle over there, and I was put back into a hospital system. And that is kind of when I realized that I was never going to really be as fulfilled as I was with being in the confines of a military medicine, military hospital system. I was a fast burner. As much of a troublemaker as I was in high school, I learned to take rules and figure out what the loopholes were to provide high quality care. But I also spent a year as an exec. And for anybody in the military who knows what that is, it's for people who the military wants to groom to be generals. But it's a year of hell. It's a year of being a secretary to some kind of a bigwig. And during that time, I learned that hospitals were reimbursed. They're provided with money according to how sick you keep your patients. So the sicker a hospital, the more money they're awarded. And I was like, well, that seems ass backwards. And maybe that's the reason why I was told, no, you can't go out and do your full-time job can't be to go out and do proactive things. And I was wondering why for the longest time. Why wouldn't you want me to go out and prevent these people from coming into our hospitals? And I found out the reason why. I also started taking a real critical look at mental health because OTs should be integrated into mental health, but in many positions in the Air Force specifically, the Army does a much better job than the Air Force, I will say, but many jobs in the Air Force, they weren't integrated into mental health at all. And I was seeing 4 to 5 week wait times for initial appointments. I was seeing an increase in suicides at the same time. But then I was looking at my clinician colleagues who I knew were really good people. And I knew they really wanted to help. And they were totally and utterly burnt out. They were emotionally burnt out. They were physically burnt out. They didn't have time for themselves. They didn't have time for their families. And I realized that the system was setting us up for failure as clinicians. And as much as we wanted to help, maybe a client deserved and really needed an hour and a half for an initial appointment. That's not how the system works. You've got 20 minutes to go through your patients, and you need to focus on RVUs, and you need to focus on numbers, because that's what we look at the end of the year to make sure we get our money. So my year as an exec, I would say, was probably the nail in the coffin for me. While I learned so much, I also learned a lot about myself. And I am really proud of this troublemaking spirit of mine now, because I just realized that not only is the military medical system in a lot of ways set up for failure, but the entire American healthcare system in a lot of ways is set up for failure. I would reach out to nutritionists and mental health providers and say, hey, I think we need to work together on this client, but they wouldn't have time to get back to me. And there was no one over me saying, hey, we're going to do rounds and you guys need to work together on this. I was seeing breast cancer patients, but not allowed or not granted the time or the freedom to be able to talk to their doctors. So I had my daughter in February of 2020, took my maternity leave, did an internship, and said thank you to the Air Force. And I want to be clear, the Air Force was wonderful to me. They gave me 3 degrees, my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate degree. And I had amazing experiences, but I had this pull and this feel that I could do more. And that pull and that feel of doing more was unrelenting. I couldn't sleep anymore. I was waking up in the middle of the night writing memorandums, MFRs, about how we needed to improve not only our profession as occupational therapists in the Air Force, but our entire Air Force. And I found that I was spending so much of my energy trying to get attention to solve a system when I could have been using that energy on real human beings. And at the same time, the suicide rates were climbing. And I felt this just kind of alert all the time that I wasn't where I was supposed to be. So I made the very scary jump to being a civilian. I got out on November 20th of 2020, had a full-fledged panic attack. My husband was with me for my going away party, and I literally pulled up the system to kind of like repeal my separation, and I was about to click the button. And my husband was like, this is not, you need to take this risk. Like the other people's lives depend on you taking this risk. So thank God for him. And the next day I started my own business, which is 5x5 performance therapy. And originally that was focused around providing virtual support for military and first responders and their families, always big there, and their families. And that I was doing pretty well with that for a couple of months. And then I get a LinkedIn request. And the LinkedIn request was interesting because A, I had just started LinkedIn, but B, my husband is a part of this community in the Air Force called Pararescue. He's a combat rescue officer. And so I'm really, really passionate about the PJ community. And this person was a PJ. And I was like, James, have you heard of Steve Nesbitt? And he was like, yeah, he like never smiled. They call them cones when they're trainees. He was like, I was a cone going through, so like tried to keep my distance from him. So don't really know him too much, but apparently they were stationed together. So at the time I was also looking for my 500th friend because it's a big deal on LinkedIn. And so I thought he was requesting me to be my 500th friend. So I message him back and I'm like, thank you so much for being my 500th friend. Looks like we're a part of the same community. And I think a lot of people's response to me initially is a laugh and an eye roll, because I imagine he did that and he messaged me back. He's like, I don't care about being your 500th friend. We have some things we need to talk about. And I was like, oh, all right. So Steve and I get on the phone call, or we get on our first phone call, and Steve tells me his story, which involves losing many people over his career. It involves losing someone on a training mission, Peter Cranes. And it was all very interesting to me because I was a part of this. I'm a part of the spouses, right? Spouses know everything. We talk about everything. So it was very personal to me. All of the losses that he felt in some way or another, I had also distantly felt. And he said, Jen, we gotta do something. I see what you're doing with 5x5. He said, I know that you've got the experience of developing these teams. Well, I have the experience of these teams saving my life. And we both had this moment of, why is this common sense that multiple professionals should be working together on one person's treatment? And we also had this clarifying moment that no one else was going to do it. And if we were going to sit there and talk about it and complain about the military medical system and about the American healthcare system and about how segmented and broken it was, then we were going to be a part of the problem. So Steve was like, we need it in person. And I was like, great. We also need telehealth. Now, one thing that Janet, I think, said in her introduction was something to the midst of, there was nothing to support me after. What I knew about mental health and about in-person treatment is that's great, but there needed to be an extra step. Who was going to make sure that everything we taught them in person was then transferred to the home and the work environments? So Shields and Stripes was formed with just Steve and I, and our model was 4 weeks of in-person. So for Doc Miller, that's an intensive outpatient model. So about 6 to 8 hours with us every day. And what we provide them is strength and conditioning, We give them nutrition. We take care of all of their meals according to their nutrition goals. We give them physical therapy for their physical injuries. Occupational therapy kind of pairs everything in, so they learn coping strategies, sleep performance, communication skills, goal setting. We give them individual psych sessions every single day with our psych docs who are trained in EMDR. And then we have mentors on site. They practice complementary stuff like yoga, and they have group discussions and group therapy sessions as well. So once they are done with those 4 weeks, they move on to 12 weeks of telehealth with my team of clinicians. And all of my clinicians are culturally competent, as Sarah used that term earlier on. They're either a part of the military community, veterans, spouses. So they're very, very uniquely ingrained in the culture. And each person, we call them athletes. We don't like to call them patients. Each of our athletes gets 12 weeks of 2 hours per week of telehealth. And the main role there is that's where we really intertwine the family into the treatment. So we want them there. We want them to know the nutrition plan, support and know the strength and conditioning. Let's talk about communication. Let's talk about the do's and don'ts of supporting someone when they're going through psych treatment and EMDR. Do you know their triggers? Do you know how to support them when they are triggering? All of those things are learned in the telehealth session. And what we've learned is that the in-person is great, and it gives our athletes a chance to focus on really nothing but themselves. But the most important part of our program model is the telehealth. And that's the hardest part for the athletes, because they have to learn how to take this huge change of their lives and then put it into the home and work environments. So we have a cohort coming up in August, Daniel, in Phoenix, Arizona. We are very good friends with Exos. So Exos supports us, and we use their facilities, which are great because they're top of the line. Last time around, we had our guys and gals going through the program, working out on the floor with the combine athletes. I'm 5'0", and I have a picture with some of the combine athletes, and it was nuts. They were just crazy, but very supportive of veterans and police and first responders, and a lot of them made great friends with each other. But so we will be doing our next cohort with an August 1 start date in Phoenix. And this model, we're almost to our 4 weeks of in-person and 12 weeks of telehealth. This model is 3 weeks of in-person, 9 weeks of telehealth. We're all also really very specific about making sure that we do our due diligence and collect research to make sure what we're doing works and what we're doing is the best model. And if there's anything out there that we need to improve upon, that we do so. But yeah, what was a conversation a year and a couple months ago with Steve has now turned into a team of about 15 core volunteers who are everyone from astrophysicists to prior combat veterans to, military spouses who seem to do 25 things all superiorly. But that's my story. That's me. So I'd love to open it up for any questions or comments or anything like that.
Oh my gosh, that was fantastic. Jennifer, you shared that so well. I just, you know what, I want to make a few comments and then a question, and then we'll open it up to everybody. I kept thinking, oh my gosh, this woman is a kindred spirit. I mean, the way that you think about how we need to do things, like it just needs to make sense and needs to work, right? I mean, we're here to help people. And when things get lost in the bureaucracy and nobody makes sense in our conversations with them, it's so frustrating. And yet you, I just love that. I love where you came from. It was that protectiveness, and you went from protecting to more empowering. The focus just switched to empowering, and all those strengths that you had growing up. It's amazing to see you just be so equipped and use all that energy to truly hit the bullseye like, okay, what is really going to help? And it, again, so holistic. And I love how you shared about pulling in the families, because I have seen that too, that, oh my gosh, these families and our protectors don't even understand what's happening with them. And so you're, again, that holistic approach, it's just, it was really exciting to hear your story and how it's all used to what you're doing now. Gosh, that is so exciting. And I also really felt it when you talked about the burnout with the clinicians. I have heard that too with my friends who are clinicians, like at these organizations that are helping veterans. They don't have the freedom to do what they really want to do. And you are setting it up to where that help is, everybody is able to do their job to give the help that's needed. And I always do feel, and I love to, so I know pages of notes. I love what you said. You spent so much time trying to figure out how to repair a system, and how we just can't do that. It really is going to be grassroots efforts. So, I just, and I actually had a question, Rats. I can't remember it. It'll come back to me. But I really want to thank you for everything that you're doing, and just to be able to articulate it so clearly. It was awesome.
Thank you. I hope so.
Oh, it was
felt like I was rambling for a minute. I was,
Oh gosh, no, it was so clear. So I want to thank you. Looks like Janet has a question or a comment. Yeah, feel free to raise your hand just to make it easier to not miss you. So Janet?
Jennifer, you are amazing. The families is so important. There's so much isolation, especially with work as well. But the families, when they don't understand, I was blessed that I was off work at the time for a car accident when I was diagnosed. I did not go through our channels. I didn't see the force doctor. I didn't see, not for that, for other stuff, but I didn't go through the force psychologist. So it was a totally different experience, because nobody thought of us that way. 2003, and it still takes a long time. So that was stress on itself, just the boss. But my husband being a police officer at the time, or retired from it, same thing. He had a more of an understanding than that. So family needs to be part of the healing process, and really to find what you're doing. Like, I've envisioned something like that for so long. I started just all kinds of training after, because I was searching. I trained with people like Jack Canfield. I did all kinds of emotional work myself and stuff, just to keep that going. So please keep going. Hopefully it'll spread more. I don't have all the letters, but I can share experiences and show people how I've moved forward, and keep learning all the time. So thank you for being, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being a supportive spouse. That's so important. We know, clinicians know that, the spouse is often the first person to recognize that there is an issue in their loved one before the person even recognizes it. And now, me being a spouse, I understand that too. That I'm the first person to recognize something is wrong with James before he will ever even recognize it. So it's just silly. I mean, I'm not an astrophysicist. I'm not a genius. This is common sense. And it's time that we just start using common sense when we're approaching health, mental health, physical health, all of it. So.
Amen to that. Michelle.
I know he was waving his hand before me. Sam, do you want to go first?
That's okay. I just can't find the raise hand on my
Well,
Zoom
go
here.
ahead. Go ahead and I'll go after you.
No. You go. Go ahead.
Okay.
We'll just know that Sam's after Michelle. Okay.
That was really great, Jennifer. One of the things that I love about you is just your smile and positivity. And then, like, when you describe yourself as like 5'0", that's me. I'm like 5'2", always the shortest one around. And like, you're like laugh and outgoing demeanor reminds me a lot of who I was prior to dealing with all this PTSD thing. So I really like that about you. I definitely can't wait to connect more. But I did want to say, I think that it's really interesting that one of your things that you focus on or noticed was a problem was the delay in veterans or first responders getting their therapy started. And I left work, I went out on work and started a workers' comp claim in January of 2020. I actually contacted a lawyer and officially started the claim in February. It took 2 months for workers' comp to just get me to a psychiatrist who, I love him, he's great. However, all he wanted to do was prescribe me medication. And he said, I'm submitting this to workers' comp that you need EMDR paired with psychotherapy, possibly even a little bit of CBT, depending who they find. And I'm like, okay, great. That was let's see, in March. And it took 2 more months for my claim to officially be accepted through workers' comp. And then, so during that time, I'm seeing the psychiatrist once every 5 weeks. That's it. And then it took all the way until September for me to finally start seeing a therapist. And it just blows my mind that this delay is, if I had a physical injury and I'm not getting physical therapy, it's essentially going to make it worse, to prolong that. And it blows my mind that I can't understand why the delay is there, because my mental injury is just as bad as a physical injury. So I think that's really great that you recognize that and you're trying to help bridge that, because it's an awful process to be going through.
Absolutely, Michelle. And just to put it out there, we are still accepting athletes and applications for our cohort in August. And we intend to be able to run multiple. We want to be able to help lots of people per year to make sure that when they do identify that they have, that they need some help, that we're able to get them help very quickly.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. My question for you, so my boyfriend has been with me through this whole entire process. Him and my mom are very strong advocates that I should not return to dispatch. And it's just the way it's going. My life is getting ready to take on a new chapter. No idea what that is yet, but my mom actually said that she was going online to research how to be a support system for me, having my triggers and all of that. I have a bachelor's in psychology and she is certified as a nurse. So at least mine and hers online researching, we kind of knew some valid websites to go to. But then my boyfriend was like, yeah, I was looking and he came across some weird stuff that didn't make sense. And then he was like, all I can find is like military, and some of your stuff was different. I didn't know what I was looking at. And so he felt lost. And I had no idea he felt this like disconnect of, he felt like he was failing as my partner because he couldn't find anything to support me. Do you have anything that we can recommend our partners read to kind of gear them in the right, what to expect when it comes to this type of thing?
I do, and those resources primarily come from my my private business, my virtual business. So absolutely,
okay.
And it's been great. Unfortunately, my brother was overseas for a year and he returned with some PTS. So I really developed a lot of content specifically for my own family. So I can say that at least the quality is good enough where I would give it to my own family to help them. So I'd love to pass those resources on to you.
Great. I will definitely connect with you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Sam?
Thank you. So a couple of things. One of the things, Sarah, when you talked about kindred spirit, that Jennifer is this kindred spirit, I think if we're being totally honest, everybody on this call are the same kind of kindred spirits. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be doing what we do and so passionate about it. So I think that's a great way of kind of lumping us all together. One a comment and then one question. When you talked about what you do in the 4 weeks and then the telehealth, but the 4 weeks of the nutrition and the physical exercise, it's always been a sore point in the therapy that I do when my patients or my clients, or athletes is a really good term to use, want to talk and really don't want to deal with or talk about self-care and how I have to really drive that home, because the mind and the body are one. And you have to take care of both of them. So I think that's a really great focus of the 4 weeks. But you mentioned something else about the telehealth and the counselors that you work in. They're culturally sensitive, meaning connected somehow to military or to first responders. So I'm an outside guy. I'm not military. I'm not police. Do a lot of work, a lot of trauma responses at locations, on sites. But I've always felt that I don't belong because I'm not part of that family. When I go out and I do a trauma response, for example, with police, there's always a peer support there. Because if I come and I start talking about a debriefing, they're going to go, yeah, very nice. And then the police officer, who's the peer support, is going to say, okay, guys, cut the crap. You can BS him, but you can't BS me. So let's talk really about what's going on. And it's a wonderful moment for me as a therapist, but it's really great. So any tips on, because I want to do work in this area and I want to work with first responders, and I've been asked, I was just asked to write a manual on critical incident stress debriefing specifically for first responders, how it's different. And so, this is my wheelhouse, hopefully, and I want to do it even more, but I'm an outsider. So how do we kind of make that transition? I'm too old to enlist. So.
I have a couple thoughts about that. First thing is first, you aren't an outsider, because what really connects us is that we all care and that we're all passionate about the veteran and the first responder community. It's not necessarily that we are veterans and we have experience. Like, sure, that's great. But I think there are veterans and first responders out there who don't care. So I think what really is the connecting factor here is that we do care and that we do want to give back in some meaning. So I understand what you're saying. I don't identify you as an outsider. Now,
okay. Thank you.
One thing that I will tell you that I would say at least every military member has experienced is really bad care at some point in their life. And they've encountered somebody who doesn't care. And I will say the same thing about police and first responders, because I know the system and they're seeing a burnt out provider. So everyone has an experience where they're hoping that someone can help them, and they have an experience where that person is just not equipped or just doesn't care enough to really go the extra mile to help them. So what I would say, my biggest tip, and this is from the veteran, the spouse, and the clinician side, is to do exactly what you just did. I am not a veteran, I am not a first responder, but guess what? I care more than a lot of people out there, and I will go the extra mile for you, and I will go the extra mile for your family. If I was in the worst of my days and someone said that to me, I don't care if they're a veteran. All I care about is that they're going to go the extra mile for me and that they care.
And I really appreciate it. And I think that does really go a long way. One of the questions to kind of follow up, and then I unfortunately have to get offline, is that I've been told by some therapists who do work with first responders more so than I do. There's, don't talk about work-life balance. They'll throw you out of the office. Half of them don't trust therapists. They don't trust the person who's sitting at headquarters, and so part of it is understanding the culture, but also understanding the culture from the perspective. I'm a therapist. If I'm going to be the right therapist for you, I'm going to need to, and I mean, that's why self-care is really important for me, because I dive in 1,000%. And if I don't take care of myself, I'm going to burn out and have problems as well. But there are certain nuances and understandings and nuances about therapy that can really make the difference between being successful and not successful. And I'd love to be able to, and maybe you can help me with, or anyone here can put me in touch with some people who really are connected in terms of doing therapy, doing MDR with the community so that I can kind of say, let me pick your brain. Is there any training out there? Right? I mean, do I have to do ride-alongs? I'll do ride-alongs. You know what I mean? And
Our lead PsyD is EMDR trained. She actually has her own nonprofit focused in EMDR and trauma-focused training, specifically with the military and the first responder community. And she is amazing. So I will connect you with Dr. Heidi Anderson as soon as we're done with this call, as long as you leave your contact information in here.
My email address is on the chat.
Got it.
But I'm also on LinkedIn, so we can do it that way. Either way, wow, that's exactly what I need.
You will love her, and she is my lead PsyD. She does everything as far as EMDR. I don't touch that stuff. That is her lane. So you guys will connect for sure. She would love to connect with you.
Amazing, amazing. So I'm gonna have to say goodbye because I'm doing a mental health in the workplace training next week, and I've got to connect with the people I'm training. So goodbye, everyone. Sarah, again, thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for everything. And thank you, everybody. And hopefully we'll connect maybe next week. All right.
Good to see you. Take care. Glad you were on.
Sam, before you go, I'd like to make one suggestion to you. I was in the Navy, sort of, and I was a police officer and a police sergeant. And I would like to suggest that you reframe your view of your position in those groups. And your position is a contribution of skills and experience that they don't have. And you're offering to contribute, you're not offering to become part of. You're trying to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem.
Okay.
And it's very similar to divorce. Two people that are having difficulty in their marriage try to fix it themselves. And it never works because it's broken. And they need somebody with an outside perspective to create that opportunity for recognition and to return to their original vows. And so simply reframing that can make a huge difference for you as you approach these people. And yes, you're going to run into people who, and I guarantee it because I've been there, I've seen it. You're going to run into people who say, well, you're not part of us. No, I'm not. I bring a different set of skills and a set of skills that you perhaps need to hear. And then let it go.
Excellent. Great advice. It's a really nice way to frame it. So thank you, Paul. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend. Take care.
Bye. Thanks, Paul. That was a great reframe. Yeah. And if I could just make a quick comment before you make your comment, Paul, I just want to say, Jennifer, I totally agree with Sam when he was saying that we're all kindred spirits on the call. I totally agree. I was just connecting with you to back you up everything you were saying, but I have found that too on everyone who is so open and really want to be part of the solution. It's amazing. On these groups. So I totally agree. And that's why I like everybody to introduce each other, because we never know what people can bring. Paul, do you have more to say?
Oh, I could go on for a week or so, but no.
Okay. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but did you kind of get a chill down your spine when Jennifer was talking about the sicker the hospital, the more money people got? Like, you always know that, follow the money trail, but that was very disheartening. I've always kind of thought that anyway, but to have somebody who has actually been in the inside, it's all the more reason why we, have to empower these grassroots efforts. And, I was curious, you are doing such amazing, like Steve is such a great guy. You are such an amazing person also. And what you are putting together is so thoughtful. And I love, again, all your protectiveness of taking care of your little brother and all the details behind that, how you are being so thoughtful in this process also going forward. is there a way, or are you thinking about even how do you expand these efforts to be more than you and Steve? Like, how do you do that?
Oh yeah. It is, how do I do it? Here's the real answer. We surround ourselves with people who are way smarter than we are. People who are constantly saying, okay, Jen, what's your plan for next year? What's your plan for 2 years? What's the staff you need? How are you going to hire this staff? How are you going to keep this staff happy? Because another key to this entire program, either failing or successing, or being a success or failing, is our clinicians. We have to make sure they are the happiest clinicians, and they are feeling valued, and they are feeling proud of what they are doing in order for that to trickle down to our clients. So how are we, your original question is, how are we doing this? Steve and I are constantly recognizing that we are not smart enough for this area or this area or this area. So it's really about gaining the mentorship, building our board of advisors, leaning on other people to really say, okay, hey, I'm an occupational therapist. I am not a businesswoman. Where am I? Where's the gap in my vision? And how do I tie a bow on those gaps and make sure that we're planning for the future? So for example, we just added physical therapy, optional spiritual counseling for someone who wants that, and a new registered dietitian to the telehealth team. And we did that purposefully because a couple of our members are pregnant and they're due, and we have to be able to plan for that. So yeah, it's really about leaning on people who are just way smarter than we are. And that's our entire team.
That's really exciting. I'm so
the other key to that is when you hire those people who are smarter than you explain to them that you hired them because you want them to tell you what works best.
Absolutely.
And then you get out of their way and let them do their job.
Yes, that's leadership. That's foundational leadership. And I think that's also really beautiful about Steve and I, is we have a very similar leadership style. Very similar, very people focused, and very much against micromanagement, and making sure people are given the autonomy to do their jobs right. Now, Paul, one caveat to that is none of our staff right now, we don't have the funding to pay any of our staff except for our clinicians. They get paid very well because I ensure that. But most of these people are working for us for free. So it's like more of a, hey, I asked you for your help to tell me what works the best. Don't come to me because I don't have the experience. Just do it, try it. If you fail, fine. As long as it's not resulting in our clients, mental health. If you fail on a discussion with a business leader, come back to us and tell us why. So it's been fun. It's been terrifying. Our lawyer, for example, our volunteer lawyer, was in the middle of negotiations between some pretty bad terrorists in the United States. And I'm like, why am I interviewing you to be on our board of advisors? How about you interview me? So we have some very, very impressive people, and Paul's absolutely right. They tell us what to do, is what I'm getting at.
And they obviously see the incredible value of the work that you're doing, and you're attracting amazing people. That's so exciting. That's incredible.
Thank you. They do.
Yeah. I love that thought. I mean, it's, having people come in to tell you what to do. I mean, I can totally understand that. Just to have that, again, that holistic, filling in the gaps and what is going to make this the most powerful work. Love it. John, do you have a comment, question?
Yes, Jennifer, first of all, thank you very much for sharing your story, a lot of your background, as well as what your organization is doing and a lot of the things that you're connecting and just enlightening us with. One of the questions that I have for you is, as a newer organization, as a newer nonprofit like Honoring the Heroes and what we're doing, just short of 2 years old, and even me starting the chapter back in October of last year, I get a lot of people just encouraged to see that we're providing a good resource as a tangible item and a lot of the different things and being a part of that kind of community. But what would be some advice that you can give to be able to get more exposure and really connect with the right people to be able to support us and being able to do the things that we need to do, also getting connected with a lot of the people in the community and showcase what we can do, and then connecting with other organizations to be able to support in an element, maybe collaborations, things of that sort. Like I said, this is more of a passion project. This is not my full-time job. Nobody is getting paid off of this. This is just our hard work, sweat and tears of volunteer work. A lot of the donations are very grassroots, with just going out to events, shaking hands, kissing babies, and hopefully people will give us money, donate money so that we can build out these bags and donate them to as many first responders. But as someone who works full time, having a regular job on the daytime, you know, it's very taxing to be able to work and then do this volunteer work on the side. I know volunteers are very valuable. So any ways to get that, for you to share that advice with connecting with people, or even just looking for volunteers, and what do you think is the best approach to be able to just provide or get more exposure?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. The first one being one of the very early things, and I'm talking one of the first things that Steve and I did, was we reached out to a very successful, and not like Navy SEAL Foundation successful, but a pretty successful nonprofit. And when we said, hey founder, can you mentor us? What did you do? Because whatever you're doing, we need to figure out how to do something similar to that. And one of the things that he told us to do was, you got to start somewhere. And that somewhere for us happened to be where Steve was located, in the Pines area of North Carolina. And that was strategic to us because it's huge Army, huge Air Force. And a lot of people filter through that area. So we held an event. We held one event. We held a golf tournament in North Carolina. That's big. And we invited everybody that would listen. And it didn't just have to be veterans. It was people from the local hospital community. It was like car dealerships, the like Zaxby's owners, just everybody that we could get in this one small space to be able to share our story effectively, quickly, tell them what we wanted to do. And I'm telling you, that one event, while it took coordination and effort and volunteers, that is what was the trickle effect for us. Because then people went and talked to their friends and their neighbors, and all of a sudden we weren't reaching out to people anymore. Now we have to manage, okay, how many people are reaching out to us? So yeah, I would say, like, get a mentor of a nonprofit who's been doing it for a while. Try to maybe host an event while that, it doesn't have to be like super fancy, like a gala, which we just did, which I don't ever want to hear the word gala again because it was so crazy. But yeah, start somewhere. And if you're the Ohio like chapter, if that's your jam, do
Idaho.
Idaho. Okay, sorry, that's
no worries.
No one from Ohio is on here, but Idaho is beautiful. If you're the Idaho chapter, maybe start, just plan like an event in your community. Just get the word out in your community, and you'd be shocked to see how many people would support you and want to help you.
So we just had our first event Wednesday.
Yeah, what you
we
do?
We actually did an 80s prom theme event. There was I also go to a lot of different social networking events for business to business, and I'm a people engager, I'm a people connector. I like to be that person as, if you need something, I know a guy or a gal that can be able to hook you up. And so I met this one realtor 9 months ago, and ever since we met, she was like, we're going to do an event eventually. So 3 months ago, she was able to get her broker for brokerage to agree to, hey, let's do an event for our annual anniversary for our company. So they pretty much did 80% of the work, grunt work, looking for the venues, doing posters, doing all types of things, getting gift baskets for raffles, connecting with people. which was great. And so we actually held it at a local brewery tap room, and it was a 80s prom theme, Rock On for the Heroes fundraiser. And then we just kind of went out there and just invited the different departments, different police departments, fire departments, paramedic departments. I even sent an email to the mayor of the city that we were hosting it in, just because I wanted to do it. And he responded back, yeah, I'll share this with my leadership. So
you're already doing it.
Yeah, so it's like, it's the first of many. Wasn't a huge turnout, but I think that the people that were there, they got a chance to really hear what the purpose was. And it was, we wanted to raise the goal was, let's raise money so that we can donate 100 bags to Idaho first responders.
Amazing.
And that's pretty much what we were doing. So it's about getting more of that exposure. And it was a lot of work. The last month to 2 months, it was a lot of work trying to push out that information and really get things going. But we had a lot of companies, businesses, local businesses supporting, doing gift baskets, raffles and stuff. So we're just hoping to do more of that.
I hear you. I would say I would be surprised if the trickle effect doesn't start if you don't get people to reaching out to you already. Biggest piece of advice, once you start hosting events, have a plan. When you get people, say like, hey, how can I help you? If you have to have a plan for them. Like we were like, sure, you can join our team. And we didn't know what we needed at the time. We didn't know what to do with them. And that's not good management and that's not good leadership. So now it's like, okay, what drives you? All right, now here's like expectations. Here's what we really need help on. So even having a plan to make sure that your volunteers and you can utilize them effectively so that their drive and that their burn and that fire doesn't decrease. That's
awesome.
Something we learned the hard way.
Thank you. Thank you for your advice.
Yeah, of course.
That is great advice. I'm taking notes on that one too. Okay. Janet.
Thanks. Jennifer, one thing that you talked about is that you sent to like car dealerships and stuff like that. Don't forget, so many veterans are in those fields now. They, and they support or they have family members. So that's one of the things that is to think outside the box. Yes, we want to support these, but people are supporting them already. They just don't know how. And you've given them that. And by doing those invitations, and same thing with John, what you did. But one thing I found in volunteering or supporting is I did this for Operation Friendship Senior Society for homeless seniors. I did Christmas bags, but I made a list of what to put in. That's what I sent out to everybody. Because that's what they needed. So John, if you put a list of everything that you put into a bag or sponsor a bag, and that's what I did. I put that list out and I put it out to my community. We collected 100 bags to give out that people filled. So, suggestion. And Sarah, Jennifer, I'd love to get in touch with you. I just followed you on LinkedIn, but you got premium, or it says premium. I can't send you a message. So anyways, I'd love to connect with both of you. So
of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, listen, does anybody have any last comments before we say goodbye to Jennifer? This has been a fantastic talk, Jennifer. I don't know. This never gets old because I think the people who really want to help and really want to connect have such great things to share. So I really appreciate you coming on. I think Paul has a last comment or question.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
A couple of things. One of the things that makes it difficult for people to understand sometimes what you do, and this applies to you as well, John, there are invisible injuries. And because people can't see them, they have difficulty perceiving them. And those include mental health, vision, hearing, and TBI. And they're all very clear about that. Now, What is the name of your firm, Jennifer?
Shields and Stripes.
Shields and Stripes. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
The next thing is that when somebody comes to you and says, how can I help? My strategy is I look at them square in the eye and I say, what are you really passionate about doing?
Absolutely.
Because when you do that, they're going to start talking. And you will know in very short term whether they're a fit for your organization or not. Once you know that, then put them on an advisory board or put them to work as a volunteer emptying trash. I don't care what it is, but put them to work and let them know they're appreciated. As far as the advisory board goes, I always look for two things. One is, what can you contribute from your skill set? And you have a choice of either helping us manage or helping us fundraise. Which would you like? And when you do that, people will start to become ambassadors for your organization. And that, believe it or not, is the most valuable thing you can have, because those ambassadors are going to go out and spread the word in viral fashion. And that's very useful. But with the fundraisers, when they tell you that they're willing to do fundraising, find out what's in their Rolodex. And I don't mean go through the Rolodex itself, but do they have funding sources? Do they have other organizations that they can contact to sponsor events like you and John were both talking about? It's a great way to make some money and to pay for the event, is to have people sponsor it. And usually it's local businesses, but not always. There are some national firms that are happy to do that as well. And those are the people that are concerned about the welfare of the veterans and the first responders and the emergency room staff and all that sort of thing. And so these are, and I should tell you one other thing. I was the commander of the American Legion post in Newport Beach, which was the fourth largest post in the world at the time. And I had to come up with all kinds of things to keep this going and keep it afloat. Our budget was huge. And not because we wanted it to be, but because that was the cost of doing business in Newport Beach.
Pretty busy Navy area.
I'm sorry?
It's a pretty busy Navy area as well.
Yeah. In any event, when they come to you and they say, how can we help? And you ask them what they're passionate about, you will know real quickly whether that is a fit for you. And there are some folks that you just do not want as volunteers. And just be aware of that. And I'm not saying, just shut everybody off, but be selective. And the way you can tell is there are people who are givers and there are people who are takers. And you want the givers.
For sure.
The takers will bleed you dry. And I characterize it as simply this. The difference between an elderly gentleman and an old bum is the guy who holds his hand like this or like this.
That's pretty good. I like that.
Well, visualize that because that's important.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your story, Jennifer. I was on when Steve shared his, and I let him know, so maybe in August or before August, if you want to reach out, see how I can assist or help, since I'm locally here in Phoenix.
Absolutely. I also wanted to be very specific to let you and Janet know that when we say first responders, correctional officers in many ways are first responders, as are people who answer the call when someone is experiencing the worst moment of their life. So yeah, if anyone in your network needs help, please reach out to us.
Will do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll be in touch.
All right, thanks.
Daniel's awesome. He's definitely trustworthy and a giver, for sure. And Jennifer, this was awesome. Do you have any last thoughts that you want us to walk away with before we say goodbye here?
Last thoughts. I think that the last thoughts really have to do with the idea of being innovative and disruptive. I think that in order to really make the change that we need to do, I learned not to go from the top, but to go at the bottom levels. But Steve and I are about to be disruptive. And that is going to come in the form of really calling out what's wrong. What is wrong with the healthcare system? Why, people are asking why suicides are occurring, and we're going to return with common sense. So I think that the last thing that I'd like everyone to leave with is just simply, if you feel that this is common sense, if you're on board with, the plan that we have, we always ask people for a couple things. Obviously, donations are great, right? But donations aren't everything. Network is huge.
Oh, Jennifer, you froze. I'm telling you, it's that cliffhanger again. Right?
Oh, wow.
Oh,
happens.
good. Yes, it does happen. I mean, that was great. Anyway.
We have to have her back now, so she has to finish.
She's got to finish.
Yeah, yes.
I got to head out.
Okay. Bye, Daniel.
Great to see everybody.
You guys, it
Take
was
care.
wonderful. We'll just know that Jennifer just shared so beautifully. So everybody who is here and everybody who's watching, thank you so much.